So think about your daily grind for a second. We all claim that we work hard just so we can, finally relax.
Right, yeah. Enjoy life, spend time with the people we actually love.
Exactly. We always say family is our top priority, or we say we value our spiritual or inner life above all else.
Yeah, that's the standard line.
But then why do our bank statements and our daily calendars almost always prove the exact opposite?
Oh, totally.
I mean, think about the reality of your week. The alarm goes off in the pitch dark, you drag yourself out of bed, and the mental treadmill it starts before your feet even hit the floor.
Oh, yeah, the commute, the endless emails.
Late meetings.
Yeah,
We burn through our absolute best years acquiring more and more stuff, and we often convince ourselves, well, we're just doing what it takes to survive.
right. But today, we're looking at a text that makes a rather terrifying claim, honestly. It argues that we aren't actually surviving. We are being completely blinded and manipulated into this endless, unwinnable competition.
Yeah, today we are taking a deep dive into this fascinating source text written in Arabic. It analyzes the psychological and, the spiritual grip of materialism, specifically through the lens of Quranic verses.
It's a really unique perspective.
It is. And our mission on this deep dive is to explore that massive, super uncomfortable gap between what we tell people our priorities are and what our daily actions are screaming loud and clear.
Because we operate under this totally unspoken assumption that the next acquisition, the promotion, the kitchen renovation, the bigger car, that is finally going to be the thing that lets us step off the treadmill.
The thing that finally makes us happy.
Exactly. We think we're in control of our desires. But this source material argues that our desires have completely masterminded our lives.
Now, before we get into it, I want to be incredibly clear right up front for everyone listening. Our source today is firmly rooted in Islamic theology.
Right.
It uses specific verses from the Qur'an to build its entire framework. But we are exploring this today purely as an analysis of the author's philosophical and psychological arguments.
We're looking at the human condition.
Exactly. We aren't here to endorse a specific religious doctrine. We're just using this highly analytical, historical lens to look at our behaviors, our desires, and, let's be honest, our amazing ability to lie to ourselves.
And the author builds this really profound psychological profile of human desire here. But it starts with a foundational premise. We have to understand how the physical world actually presents itself to the human mind.
Right, so before we look at our modern habits, we need to look at this premise. The source centers its initial analysis on a very specific phrase from the Quran, which translates to, "Beautify is the life of this world for those who disbelieve."
Yeah, and the author doesn't just read that line and gloss over it. They pause on that word beautified and do a deep linguistic breakdown.
Okay, let's unpack this, because they look at the Arabic root of the word for beautified, which is Zayn, Z-Y-N.
Right, using a classic linguistic text called Ibn Faris's Makaisa Luka, which means the standards of language.
Yeah, and linguistically, Zayn implies something way more powerful than just looking nice. It's the exact opposite of shame.
Shame meaning a flaw, right.
Exactly, a flaw or a blemish. And the word zina refers to adornments. But the author concludes that when something is beautified for you with the Zayn quality, its sheer beauty just completely overwhelms you. You become deeply attached to it because it literally dazzles you.
That contrast is it's the linchpin of the whole psychological argument. When something possesses that dazzling Zayn, it blinds you to the shame.
You don't see the flaws at all.
Right. You get so enamored with the shine of the object that you lose all critical perspective.
Which, that sounds exactly like modern algorithmic curation.
Oh, completely.
Think about a perfectly optimized social media feed. It's designed to completely captivate you and create this intense longing. It's an entire feed scrubbed of shame. No boring moments, no flaws.
Just endless Zayn.
Exactly. But does the author suggest humans are just, helpless victims of this dazzlement? Or is there an active component to it?
What's fascinating here is that the author sees this beautification as leading directly to a relentless, active pursuit.
So we aren't just passively sitting back.
Not at all. It is definitely not passive admiration. It transforms into a total obsession with acquiring and hoarding worldly goods. You don't just admire the luxury. You have an intense driving compulsion to possess it and then fiercely protect it.
Wow. Okay, so if this dazzling effect leads to such an intense obsession, How does the author see this playing out in the lives of people who claim to believe in a higher spiritual purpose?
Yeah, that is a really pointed question the text asks. Do believers share this trait of being overly attached to the world?
Because in theory, they shouldn't, right?
Exactly. Theoretically, believers don't share this trait because they know the world is temporary. Their theology literally tells them this isn't the ultimate goal.
But practically.
Practically, the author says the answer is a resounding yes. They are just as ensnared by the dazzlement.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the author points out a massive contradiction here. You have these people working continuously from the early dawn prayer all the way until sunset.
Just a relentless grind.
Yeah, they treat earning a living as if it were the absolute only valid form of worship.
And when you challenge them on this, when you say, hey, this leaves absolutely no time for your family, or for learning, or connecting with relatives, or actually serving your faith, they immediately use what the author calls the shield of necessity.
Oh, the I'm just trying to survive defense.
Exactly. They claim they are on the very brink of poverty, just trying to avoid having to beg on the streets.
But the author completely calls their bluff on this, because if you look at their actual lifestyle, it totally contradicts that claim of near poverty.
Oh, completely.
They have closets full of colorful, expensive clothes, huge, heavily decorated houses. They eat this incredibly varied diet of delicious, expensive foods.
And the author even points out these completely pointless architectural features people build.
Like the grand entryways.
Right. Grand entryways built onto the front of houses solely for showing off. They offer no protection from the weather, no structural support. They just scream, look how much money I have.
Yeah, and the author uses this brilliant kind of mundane example of the expensive couch. The salon.
Yes, the salon.
The real motivation for buying this ridiculously expensive couch isn't survival. It isn't because you need a place to sit. It's because your neighbors have it.
It's pure keeping up with the Joneses.
It's just like someone claiming they need an 80-hour work week just to survive, but they're using all that overtime pay to lease a luxury car so they can sit in traffic.
Exactly. The cognitive dissonance is staggering.
But wait, let me push back on this for a second. Isn't taking care of your family and avoiding poverty supposed to be a virtue in this framework? Like, shouldn't you work hard?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The text isn't against meeting basic needs or maintaining your dignity. The author isn't saying you should be destitute. The real issue is the self-deception. The author is targeting this extreme, endless competition for luxury that masquerades as basic survival.
So they just stretch the definition of necessity to cover basically anything they want.
Precisely. They effectively crowd out any spiritual or familial life, and they justify it by saying, I had no choice, I have to provide. It's an incredibly harsh critique of how we lie to ourselves.
So if this endless pursuit of luxury just eats up all of our time and energy, what are the ultimate consequences according to the text's theological framework? Like, where does this road actually lead?
Well, the author argues that it's an absolute zero-sum game. You simply cannot equally pursue the luxuries of this world and the rewards of the hereafter.
Yeah, the source cites some pretty stark verses from the Qur'an for this, from Surah Al-Isra and Surah Hud.
And the argument there is heavy.
Very. It argues that if you prioritize the immediate physical world, you might actually receive those worldly rewards right now.
You might get the big house and the fancy couch.
Right. But it results in a profound loss, and even hell, in the afterlife. Their worldly deeds essentially become totally void later on.
But the author completely anticipates a modern listener's compromise to this.
The loophole. We always want a loophole.
Always. People will say, well, can't we just want both? Can't I have the maximum luxury here and also the ultimate reward there?
The billionaire mystic approach.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author brings up a fascinating historical moment to prove this compromise is impossible. It's the verse of choice from Surah Al-Ahzab.
Oh, yeah. This is a super intense moment in the text.
It really is. In this historical moment, God commanded the prophet to give his wives a strict ultimatum.
Like a completely unforgiving choice.
Right. They could either choose the world and its adornments, its zina, and if they did, he would release them amicably. Or they could choose God, his messenger, and the hereafter.
So an absolute either-or situation.
Exactly. And the author's logical deduction here is brilliant. Yeah. Think about it. If it were actually possible to combine both paths, enjoying the maximum luxuries of the world, while also securing the highest spiritual rewards, wouldn't God have offered that best of both worlds option to the prophet's wives?
Yeah, they would have gotten the ultimate VIP package.
Exactly. Because he forced a choice, it proves that the two desires are fundamentally opposed. A heart consumed by the world literally has no room left for the profound reality of the hereafter.
So what does this all mean for us? Because I can hear someone listening right now going, wait, is this text demanding total asceticism? Does the author want me to live in a cave, reject all joy, and just wear a potato sack?
It sounds like that, right?
Yeah.
But no, the text doesn't advocate for forced poverty at all. The author actually concludes with a prayer and a quote from Surah Al-Qasas.
Okay.
And that verse states that the ultimate afterlife is reserved for those who do not desire exaltation or corruption on earth.
Exaltation meaning like arrogance or dominance?
Exactly. It's not about the sheer amount of wealth you have. It's about where your heart is attached and where your effort is genuinely spent. It's about not using your wealth to dominate others or artificially inflate your own status.
Ah, so it's the difference between buying a good winter coat to stay warm versus buying a coat with a huge luxury logo just to make sure everyone on the street knows how much money you have.
Perfectly said. The material world only becomes a trap when it transforms from a tool you use to live into the ultimate goal of your existence.
Wow. Okay, so we want to leave you with a final thought experiment, something directly inspired by the author's really sharp critique of how we spend our days.
It's a tough one.
It is. Imagine a total stranger is brought in to audit your life. They don't know you, they aren't allowed to hear about your internal values or what you claim to believe in.
They ignore all your justifications.
Right. All they are allowed to look at is your calendar and your bank statements from the last 30 days.
Just the raw data of your life.
Exactly. Based only on that data where you spent your minutes and your dollars, what would that stranger conclude is the ultimate absolute goal of your life? Are you actually just surviving and providing, or have you been completely dazzled by the trap? Definitely something to chew on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.